we will get started. But first I want to just talk a little bit about our props, because I'd like you to have something specific today, not anything that you haven't gotten used to grabbing, but maybe in a different way of folding. So either a long pillow, like a pillow you would sleep on at night. You know, if you have a queen or king size bed, then you probably have a king or queen size pillow, so it's going to be a wider width. Or you're going to stack blankets and make them the fold that's like hot dog style, so they're long and skinny, versus your like squared hamburger style, if that makes sense. So I have here 3 folded blankets. They're long folds and they're wide, right? So the idea is that they're going to support the width of my back in different various shapes. So take a minute to grab those. Of course, if you do have yoga blocks and you prefer like a harder feedback, you can always use your yoga blocks. But we'll be doing a few different postures with these, so you might want to have pillows or blankets to switch out at some point in time. Okay, so when you're ready, come back to your mat. We're just going to start out lying down on our backs in a shavasana-like shape with the legs stretched out long. So whatever you've been doing with your morning, most likely sitting in a chair, right? Or maybe moving around the house, or a combination of the two. Just start to allow the body, the bones, the muscles, and the skin to settle into this position, this anatomically neutral position. Although you're lying on your back, you're still in anatomical neutral. So what does this mean? The joints are stacked in the same plane. Most everything is at 0-degree rotation, unless you have your arms stretched out wide to the sides or arms reaching up and overhead. That's a different story. But let's say, for argument's sake, your arms are down alongside your body, your palms are facing the ceiling, then you would be in anatomical neutral. So if you can let your eyes close here and just start to breathe deeply. So nice deep inhale through the nose and open the mouth, exhale the air out. And continue doing that. Inhaling through the nose, open mouth, exhale. And just notice that sensation of dropping in, of letting the body be heavy, surrendering to gravity. You don't need to hold yourself upright. You don't need to hold any muscular tension. Just allow yourself to be here right now. Three more breaths to drop in. You know, even if you don't have time for a restorative practice or yoga practice, just the simple act of lying on your back, connecting to the floor, to that grounding sensation, allowing the body to be heavy, is deeply restorative. You don't need to do anything. You can just allow yourself to lie here for 1 minute, for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe even fall asleep. So just an open invitation to maybe take that into your practice at any point in time during the day. Let's start out by checking out the shoulders. We'll inhale, stretch the arms up and overhead, reach the arms long. The biceps alongside the ears, palms are facing the ceiling. Point the toes away from the face. Get really long through your body. And then exhale, slowly arms back down alongside the rib cage, back to anatomical neutral. Just do that twice more with the arms. Inhale, stretch the arms up and overhead, get long. Exhale everything back down, neutral. One more time like that. Inhale, arms up and overhead. And exhale, arms back alongside the body. Start to bend your knees and plant your feet, and then hug your knees into your chest. So rock a little bit side to side. You can grab your opposite wrists, your opposite forearms, your opposite elbows. If that's too much, you can just each hand on each shin or knee and just continue hugging knees into the chest, rocking side to side. Just a little bit more dynamic movement before we get into our long hold. Inhale, stretch the feet up towards the ceiling. Stretch the fingertips for the ceiling as well. Begin to circle out ankles and wrists. Let your head be heavy. Let your shoulders be relaxed. Tailbone rooted. It's okay if your legs don't stay straight. Sometimes that's more of a challenge than it's worth. So you can always bend your knees, right? You can always bend your knees there. So you can take that circular pattern in the opposite way. Change the direction of your circles with your wrists and ankles. And then inhale, big inhale, extend fingertips and toes towards the ceiling, and just start to vigorously shake out ankles and feet. Shake the legs, shake the arms, shake, shake, shake. And you could kind of, picture like a little bug that's stuck on its back. You're just wiggling here. Nobody else can see you. You guys all get to watch me do this, so let it be kind of silly and fun. Shake, shake, shake. For 3, 2, last one. Yeah, and then let your arms drop, feet plant, knees are bent. So our first long held shape, we're going to take something underneath the sit bones, underneath the glute. Like actually more towards the sacrum. So above the glute, in between low back and glute is the sacrum, those 5 last fused vertebrae. And I recommend using, again, something soft like pillow or maybe your stacked blanket. You want some height, you don't need a ton of height. Okay, so bending the knees, planting the feet, lifting the hips up. Whatever prop you're choosing to use, slide it underneath the width of the low back. And then settle your tailbone down there. So your hips are slightly elevated above your heart. This is like the world's gentlest, most nourishing inversion. If you need more height, add another pillow, add another blanket. Okay, if you need less height, take a pillow away, take a blanket away. Adjust to your body's needs. See if you can move the shoulders in towards the spine and away from the ears. So you have a nice long neck. And then find a place to rest your hands. So I'm bending my elbows and I'm taking my hands to my low belly. For me, that feels really nice and soothing. And then I'm going to take my feet a little bit wider and let my knees draw in towards one another. We'll rest here for about 3 minutes. So if you need to make any adjustments, now's the time. And then the goal with our restorative practices is to find a place of stillness where you can be in the posture without fidgeting, without moving around a lot, to just be still, to let your eyes close, to let your awareness draw in. the mind starts to really whir and spin and take you down a rabbit hole of thoughts, that's okay. That's the nature of the mind. It's doing its job. What I would invite you to practice is to continually come back to the awareness of the breath. So the breath becomes this metronome. And it is helpful to maybe even count the breath. So I like to use an inhale as a count of 1, exhale count of 2, inhale 3, exhale 4. I make my way all the way up to 10. And then when I reach 10, I start over again at 1. And sometimes it happens that before you even get to 5, the mind will take you off on some other narrative, which again is okay. It's the nature of the mind. But the key here is, or the success here is the acknowledgement that, oh, look at that. I am following my thoughts. I'm identifying with my thoughts. And I've lost track of counting my breath. This is the success, the acknowledgement of that. And then we simply start over again at 1, counting. Inhale of 1, exhale of 2, onward and upward. For our last minute in this shape, I invite you, if it feels okay on your low back, to extend the legs forward so your legs are stretched out and heels are resting. Hips are elevated on your prop. That can be a lot on the low back. It can feel way too intense. So I invite you to use your best judgment, discern. Do you need to back out, bend your knees, and plant your feet? This is your choice. Last couple of breaths wherever you are. If your legs are stretched out long, bend your knees and plant your feet. Take a moment here to just settle the sacrum into a heavy position on the elevation of your prop. Okay, so for this next shape, we're going to come into a twist. So if you have a huge, thick pillow or a huge stack of blankets underneath your sacrum, I recommend lightening that or making it a little bit more shallow. So I'm going to switch out my bolster for my stack of blankets so that my lift of the pelvis is not quite so high. Because we're going to come into a twist. And, you know, even a twist without the elevation of the hips can be intense. So when you elevate the hips and come into a twist, that can be a lot or even way too much for some of us. So again, this is a practice of discerning what's best for you and your body. What I'm suggesting is an option. It is not a requirement ever. Okay, so if you have something that you think is going to work, we'll try this first and then we'll make the adjustments that we need. Your blanket stack or your shallow pillow is underneath the width of your sacrum, right? You're going to press down through your feet, lift your hips up, scoot your hips off to the right a few inches, and then take both your knees off to the left. Okay, so that makes this a pretty deep twist. If your right shoulder is really far away from the mat, You might want to take something underneath the outer edge of the left leg or even in between the thighs, like an extra pillow or an extra blanket. Or maybe you just remove the stack of blankets and pillows underneath the sacrum. As long as you can breathe deep, as long as you can find a place of stillness, then I invite you to stay here in this shape for the next 3 breaths, or 3 minutes rather, sorry, not 3 breaths. But if it takes you a full minute to take a full breath cycle, that's not a bad thing. I think about the tortoise. Tortoise is one of the longest living land animals. They take an average of, I think it's 3 or 4 breaths per minute. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but it translates to a really long, slow breath. And their lifespan is about 200 to 300 years on average. And so the belief is that it's directly related to their slow, deep breath. I think as humans, we take an average of somewhere between 12 to 16 breaths per minute. So conversely, our lifespan is a little bit shorter, right? We tend to live 80s. I think 80s is our average lifespan these days. And then you think about the dog. The dog tends to take a lot more short, shallow breaths. It's about 22 breaths per minute. Average lifespan, depending on the size of the dog as well, about 12 to 15 years. Now stay with me for 3 slow, deep belly breaths. Real slow. All right, so nice and slow, we'll unwind, we'll come back through center, even though you know you're gonna go to the second side. I'd like us to take a moment to pause and center. So you pause, move that sacrum back to neutral, in line with the shoulders, knees bent, feet planted. Maybe the hands are resting on the low belly. Breathe in, breathe out. And 2 more breaths here. Notice the right side of the body. Notice the left side of the body. And do they feel different? Do they feel the same? Just notice. Set up for our second side, pressing down through the feet, lifting the hips up. Scoot the hips off to your left a few inches. We'll take both knees off to the right side. So first order of business, check out your shoulders. That left shoulder is really far away from the floor. This is a signal that you need more props underneath your right leg, maybe even props in between the thighs. Or if none of that helps, you remove the lift underneath the sacrum. You take those blankets out of the way. So making your adjustments, start to settle in, see if you can find that place of stillness. We have 3 minutes on this side. So relaxing the tissue, the muscles, bones, and skin as much as possible. Let your body be heavy. Check back in with the breath. Noticing the thoughts as they take you away. Use the acknowledgement of the breath as a sign of success. Counting each inhale and each exhale up to 10. Starting over again at 1. One more deep breath here. Deep breath out. Start to make your way back through center. So moving the hips back in line with the shoulders, neutral through the spine. Bend the knees, plant the feet. Let your sacrum rest on the elevation of your prop. If you still have it, if not, that's totally fine. Take a moment here to hug the knees into the chest. And then reach up for the feet maybe, find happy baby, just see how that feels. If you do have that little bit of elevation underneath the sacrum, it might feel nice. And if it doesn't feel nice, get rid of it. Move that thing out of the way. You can choose to straighten the legs out a little bit. You can rock a little bit side to side in your happy baby. Take your time there with that. Okay, so I'll invite you to set up for your Shavasana in a particular way by elevating the feet, the calves, the backs of the knees on maybe a chair if you have one at your disposal, or because we have all of these props gathered, like our blankets and our pillows, we can make an elevation, we can make kind of a chair-like thing. So I'm going to add all of my props, even my blocks. You could also use hardback books. I have my 3 blankets, my blocks, and then I'm going to set my pillow on top of that. And this is where I'm going to rest my calves. Okay, so I'll come back down to my back. The back edge of my knees are in contact with my props. This is a little trigger point for parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us be calm and restful, feel at peace. If you need to add an extra layer of clothing, another blanket over the body, or even covering the eyes could feel really quite nice. Just go ahead, take your time and set up. I've been drawn to placing my hands on the low belly today. It's such a nice connection, a way to make a connection with the body, a way to feel that connection with the self. And, you know, living through this past year, 2020, with the absence of being able to touch others, like hug our friends, maybe even not being able to hug our parents or shake someone's hand, you know, kind of taking that aspect of touch, which is such a needed thing for our human existence, and create that sense of touch just by being with yourself, by placing your hands on your body and breathing in and out to your own hands. Something I actually talk about on my latest podcast, which is, it's live today on Spotify and iTunes, with a really great teacher. His name is Tim Westfield. And he talks about these 12 basic human needs, 8 of them being physical, 4 of them being kind of emotional or sense-based, and touch being one of them. Let's take some time here to start to relax your body, bones, muscles, skin. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Open your mouth, exhale. Let your back teeth part and your jaw soften. Let your eyes sink heavy into their sockets and relax the flesh around the eyes. I'll invite you to count backward on your breath, starting at the number 10. With each exhalation, go backward 1 count. Next exhale is 9. Next exhale, 8. Each exhalation is like peeling away another layer of an onion. The closer you get to 0, the more the body, the mind, the breath are established in complete ease. Letting go of any counting, letting go of any doing. Just allow yourself to be here. These last few moments that we have together, I'd like to share with you a reading from the Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. No need to change or shift. Just allow yourself to listen. We must take turns. We must take turns diving into all there is and counting the time. The gift and responsibility of relationship is to take turns doing the dishes and putting up the storm windows, giving the other the chance to dive for God without worrying about dinner. While one explores the inner, the other must tend to the outer. The great model of this is how pearl divers search the deep in pairs. Without scuba tanks or regulators, one waits at the surface, tending the lines, tied to the other who soft steps the sand for treasures he hopes he'll recognize. He walks the bottom, watching the leaves of vegetation sway, and sways himself till she tugs the cord. He swallows the little air that is left as he ascends. Aboard, they talk for hours, placing what was seen, rubbing the rough and natural pearl. In the morning, she dives and fills their baskets, and he counts the time, hands wrapped about her line. Quite plainly, these pearl divers show us the work of being together and the miracle of trust. We must take turns. Whoever is on the surface must count the air time left, so the one below can dive freely. As you're ready, deepen the breath, awaken through fingertips and toes. Big breath in, stretch the arms up and overhead. Breath out, rolling off to a side and rise up to a comfortable seat just briefly. Feel your sits bones root and your spine grow tall as you join your hands together at your heart, bowing the chin into the chest, acknowledging the infinite wisdom of the heart. With reverence and gratitude for our practice, and to all of our teachers, past, present, future, to the teacher within your own heart. Namaste, yogis. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're curious about that podcast I mentioned, it's called Outside the Studio. I'm the host, Tessa Tovar. And if you are on my newsletter, you'll get a link to that. If you are not on my newsletter and you want to be, you can head to my website, tessatovar.com, and sign up there. I hope you all have a really wonderful weekend and take care of yourself.